So we're back working on the car. It's still the same day that I finished up the E85 fuel system tuning stuff. And what I'm going to do is get this MAC valve set up. Just really quick about the E85 stuff. I was going to run these 60-pound injectors as long as I can. After doing a little bit of calculations and stuff, I can safely run them if I turn the fuel pressure up. But I think what I'm going to do is just bite the bullet and buy some bigger injectors. I text Dan over at Neo Mustangs, was like, hey man, what do you think about this? And he was like, dude, just get 160s and be done with it. So what we'll probably do is get a set of 160s. We're gonna run the car with as is, probably just have a boost limit to where we don't go over probably 8-10 pounds to make sure we're not really making much over 500 horsepower. We're still gonna go out there and have fun with it, obviously. But yeah, we'll probably just bite the bullet. Getting a set of 160s, I can carry that over to the next engine combination, which for this car I really want to build like a 427 small block. So Ford. Nothing against the LS stuff, but everybody's doing that stuff, so I'm trying to keep a Ford in this car. But anyway, to get onto the topic of this video, the boost control stuff. So this car, if you don't know, it has the On3 boost controller, which is horrible. I was going to pull it off last video, but I figured I'd leave it on, start the car, make sure it runs on the E85, which we're good. So now I'm just going to yank all this stuff off really quick, and we'll go ahead and go over we will go ahead and go over again what I have to put in its place. Like I said, this should be a really simple, straightforward install. I've also got to get the wastegate off because I'm going to pull, I think there's 2 springs in it. I'm going to pull the heavy spring out, so we'll just have a nice light spring. This way we could, wastegate should be, next to no boost, maybe 2 pounds or whatever. All right, so I got the wastegate all set up. I'm going to put it back in the car. I got the dome pressure sensor at the top. I still have to wire that in. This is one of those low dollar motorsports pressure sensors from Holley. And then I got the push to connect fittings, one on top, one on the bottom. So go ahead and throw this back up in the car. I'll get the boost solenoid, throw it in the car, wired up, get it all plumbed, and then we'll hook it up in the Holley and hopefully have an easy time setting up to control it. One thing I did, I pulled the big spring out of the wastegate. So with both there was 2 springs in. With both springs in, wastegate pressure was like 6 pounds. So with just a small spring, it should be less. Basically, I want as little boost as possible off of the spring that's in it, and then I can control everything through the Holley. So if I want to run 3 pounds or whatever, hopefully it goes that low, I can run 3 pounds, and then I can run whatever, 5, 6, 8, 10, whatever. It just be regulated between the top and bottom of the wastegate through the boost control solenoid. So it's getting kind of dark here and I need some fittings anyway, but basically I'm going to mount this valve right here, and these are really simple to set up. Ooh, I almost ripped the wires out of it. So these push to connects are really, really nice. I got the one, I did the no and drilled into my On3 turbo, but this is just the right way to do it. So really all you do is just push these hoses in, and now they are set. So now that hose is set, and you just push it right in. In order to take it out, you just push up on that fitting, and then you can slide it right out. But basically, yeah, that line's gonna come and it's gonna go to this elbow right here, and this will mount. This is basically going to mount right there, and then between these 2 ports, I got to look which one. I think the bottom port goes to the bottom of the wastegate, the top port goes to the top of the wastegate, and then as this sends data back to the Terminator, the valve will flutter to meet whatever we're telling the software to give the engine as far as boost. So I'll show how to hook all that up, plus wiring the sensor in and stuff. So we'll wait for daylight. I'll go ahead and tackle it tomorrow. Alright guys, well there's pretty much nothing to that. I just have to wire this up, but basically we're coming off the turbo into the MAC valve, and then the bottom port on the MAC valve goes to the bottom of the wastegate, the top port to the top of the wastegate with the dome pressure sensor up top, which I have to wire in also, and then that's just a little filter, muffler, whatever, that's where the vent is going to come out. Go ahead and wire up the solenoid really all it gets is one wire is going to be 12 volts. The other wire is going to go into an output. It'll be pulse width modulation negative. We'll pin it inside the map. And then for the dome pressure sensor, pre-wired pigtail for it. Basically this is just going to plug in. I'm going to steal the 5-volt signal and sensor ground from the fuel pressure sensor, more than likely. And then our signal wire, I gotta look at the schematic, I don't remember which is which. But the signal wire go into, I believe it's an input. But let me go ahead, let me double check that really quick, and then we'll show you guys how I set it up. You might be wondering, like, why am I taking the fuel pressure sensor wiring? It's because, well, one, these sensors, the sensor power, 5-volt power, and then the sensor grounds, they're all basically tied together. But on mine in particular, this already leaned against the header and burnt off. So I'm just going to splice into here. And really all we're going to splice into is the orange and black. For the fuel pressure sensor, the orange is the 5-volt reference, the black is the sensor ground, and this one, the purple, runs back to send the signal for fuel pressure. Whereas on, we have so much cable on our new sensor, this will be perfect. Pretty simple. The red is going to be our 5-volt reference, 5 volts in. Black is our sensor ground, so we'll just tie into these. And then this yellow is going to go back, and I'll wire this into an input. And then this will read our, and then basically I'll show you how I go through and set it up in the software, and it'll read our dome pressure reading. Now because I have such a long cable here, so I'll just run, basically what I'll do is I'll just cut this covering back, run my signal wire back into the car. The other 2 wires, I'll just, you know, cut them back, run them neatly up here somehow. Actually, I'll probably just try and go back into this. I'll probably just try and go back into this covering here, and then just have it run along nicely. So I'm gonna do that really quick, and then the last thing we'll need to do is, yeah, do our boost control wiring, and then we'll be done with all that. This is pretty simple and straightforward. Nothing really hard to it at all. Alright, so I didn't really video the connections, but I got these, the 5-volt sensor and then the sensor ground hooked up into, or spliced into, the fuel pressure sensor. And then coming inside the car, this is the signal wire. And so this is going into, what is that, input number 2. So I'll just make sure I pin that inside the software correctly. Now I'm going to run the boost control solenoid, which it'll go to this output right here. This is output 3, I believe. And then I could finally tuck all of this rat's nest out of the way. Alright, so back over here at the boost controller, got it all wired up. I took the hot wire from the windshield wiper motor, because I don't really need the windshield wipers. And then this is the wire that goes to output number 3, which I still need to heat shrink this one, but it goes to output number 3. So then really the car is done and wired up as far as the boost control solenoid, the dome pressure sensor. All I got to do is pin in the software. I'll show you how to do that really quick. But when I went to you know, I turned the key before just to kind of fire the engine up, and I have a small fuel leak. Alright, so what ended up happening, this back fitting was dripping. So I tried tightening, it didn't work, so I just yanked the whole thing out, lathered it up with some thread sealant, threw it back in, let it dry, turned the key, and then the one over here started leaking. So I just did the same thing over there. Lathered that one up, pulled that one out, figured I might as well lather that one up. That one back there is bone dry, and I'm just going to leave it. I just checked it twice, and we have no more fuel leaks, so let's move on. We'll get the upper intake back on, and then we'll move on to pinning the boost controller. All right, so the first thing we're gonna do is open our Terminator X software. We need to add the individual configuration for boost. So we'll just click on that, click on boost, open default, and it'll pop open this whole new tab for us to go ahead and use. And then if you notice, it pops up in all these settings. We can go, now we have to set up our dome control. So let's add the input for the dome pressure sensor. I'm just gonna erase this two-step because it's not doing anything. And then we're gonna enable this, if I could spell it right. We'll enable it and then set it up as a 5-volt sensor. So now we're going to configure it. Holley says in the directions to configure it as a 3-bar map sensor. So that's how I'm going to do it. And then you just make sure you pin it correctly. I forgot to show the video of me pinning this, but make sure you pin it where it's supposed to go. So after that, we're going to go ahead and select our dome pressure input, which is going to be our dome pressure sensor. The PID settings, I'm just going to punch in some numbers that I have seen work for other people that have used the 4-port Mac valve. If they're not working for us, we can always tweak these numbers, but this should actually get us pretty close. Right now we're set up as boost by time. I'm going to change it really quick to boost by RPM just to test it out. I don't have an input like a trans brake or anything for right now. And then I'm going to go ahead and set just a safety. So I don't want the pressure to come up too high. So I'm just going to set, 2 of them. The first one will just revert it to wastegate should it get up that high. Second one, it'll cut the ignition. If I can select, all right, yeah, there we go. It'll just cut the ignition. I'll do 0.1 seconds because I don't want it to be there for a full second. If it touches it, it'll basically cut the ignition off. So now back to the curve. I just need to switch the RPM to make sure that our RPM ranges are in there. And then I'm going to load this up. We'll see what the wastegate makes, and we'll take it down the road and see how it performs. Alright, so let's go ahead and take a look at the data really quick. The car felt like it did exactly what I wanted it to do. So here's the start of the run. Just really want to check what kind of boost it made and then what the air fuels and stuff were. 127. So what do we make? About 3-ish? Probably about 3 pounds of boost. Let me switch maps right here real quick. Yeah, so I mean, we made 3 pounds of boost. I mean, that's basically all I wanted it to do. I want that nice light spring in there because now I can just really control the whole curve with the boost control solenoid. So this is absolutely perfect. Obviously, duty cycles are pretty low. I mean, we're in the 60s. It's barely any boost. Fuel looked okay. I mean, it's pretty much hitting right close to what we're targeting. Here's the thing, though. Fuel pressure, even across the board. So our pump is good enough. Even though our ejectors are, kind of low, or they're not really adequate for what we're trying to do. But overall, pretty happy with the way this graph looks. Everything looks pretty solid. What I want to do now is go back and put some pressure on top of the dome, and we will see how much boost that will actually make. You probably try, I don't know, what, 2-3 pounds on top of the dome. Let me open it first. Basically, yeah, I was going to ramp it in, but I'll just do 3 pounds all the way across the board. We'll see what it actually makes. You figure if it made 3 pounds on the gate, or just wastegate, if I put another 3 on top of the gate, that should give us, we should be looking about 6 pounds of boost when I actually go full throttle. I was thinking about changing this, but I mean, I don't really think it's going to get up this high, 10-11 pounds of boost. But I mean, I'll just keep it there for safety precaution. If it's working properly, we shouldn't have to worry about this, but I mean, for now, I guess I'll just keep it. Alright, so that did not work at all like I planned. It hit the cut ignition, so 12 pounds. Okay, so the boost control, something we have is not hooked up right. I honestly have a feeling it's going to be the way that I have this dome pressure sensor hooked up, because I mean the Holley directions say hook it up to react like a 3-bar map sensor, but what I'm going to do is actually change this so that it reacts like a, so that my dome pressure sensor reacts the same as a pressure sensor, which it basically is. I mean, it's a 0 to 100 pressure sensor. So, granted, the Holley directions say not to do it this way. I just feel like this is how it's supposed to work. So let me just zero all this stuff out and make sure it's not giving me any warnings on the screen. I really only like the RPM, the air-fuel ratio, stuff like that to show up red if I'm really having an issue with it. So now that we got that situated, I'm going to still do boost by RPM, and then, so what I'll do just to be on the safe side is I was only going to put 1 pound on top of the dome, but I feel like that's kind of useless. So I'll throw 2 on the top, and we should see, you know, 5.5 pounds of boost. So let's go ahead and load this up into the car, take it for another ride, and we will see if we got it all straightened out. Alright, so that felt like it worked much better. I mean, not as slow as it was just on wastegate. It felt like it had a little more boost in it, and just looking at it, I can already tell that it does. So as we go through, looks like the boost control solenoid's working too. I mean, I can see the dome pressure reading is there, and before it was reading in kPa, whereas now the dome pressure sensor is reading in PSI. You can see right there on the left it says 4 PSI, whereas before it would just show up as 30 some odd kPa, and it just really stayed there. So our dome pressure sensor is definitely operating now, and it's controlling our boost. So as we go up in the curve, I mean, we hit what, 6.2, 5.8, so about 5.86 pounds of boost is what that 2 pounds on top of the gate did. And what were we at before? We were, you know, 3.5 pounds or whatever it was. So yeah, this is the way that it's going to end up working for me. I know the Holley directions say to hook it up the other way. Maybe I was missing something that I just overlooked or didn't think about or whatever, but yeah, we got it working. So from here, I mean, all there really is to do is just fine-tune everything, get our air-fuel right, make sure our injector duty cycle is good to go, and then we can get out racing. All right, guys, well, there you have it. You know, a little bit of tweaking to get it figured out. I had it, luckily I set up that safety first, and it's funny because I was like, oh, it's not going to make, you know, 10 pounds, and it didn't, it made 12. But we got it figured out, and so I know the directions say to set the dome pressure sensor up like a map sensor. I don't know, I must have done something wrong, or maybe I didn't interpret it right. But setting it up just like a regular 0 to 100 pressure sensor clearly works just fine. And yeah, it's pretty cool to just, now all I do is click a button and it'll give me, you know, whatever I put on top of that dome is what the car is going to give me. So that's pretty neat. Way better than that garbage, which I kept it just in case this thing ever, you know, craps out. I can just throw the other one back on, which hopefully never happens. But anyway, I mean, 6 pounds, you know, small little pull, didn't really go that high out. Injectors look okay. So like I said, hopefully Wednesday we can get this thing to the track, shoot down the track. You know, we'll see, keep an eye on our fuel, keep an eye on the injectors. These leaks look like they finally stopped. I just, you know, put a whole bunch of Teflon paste on them. But yeah, I mean, it always feels good when the thing starts to work. I had to get the hood back on the car too. I took it off just in case I had some crazy leak with a fire or something. I can get my fire extinguisher and put it out right away instead of having to reach my hand under the hood. Yeah, I mean, that's really it. Back to racing. And then yeah, we'll see how far we can get. I'm gonna keep my eye on the injector duty cycle. You know, we'll keep it safe and all that stuff, obviously. So anyway, guys, we're gonna end it off here. Thanks for watching. As always, take care. We'll see you on the next one.